Greetings, this is Ron Smalek, and I'm reading Catching Fire. This is the second book in the Hunger Games trilogy by Suzanne Collins. I'm reading the book and giving you my thoughts on each chapter in groups of two. Hope you enjoy. Alright, so chapter 15 of Catching Fire starts off. Katniss is with her prep team and they are crying, they're very upset. And it's starting to make her a little bit upset as well, which Cinna will later put a stop to. There is an awesome description of Katniss's costume. It's sort of like this what do they call it? Spandex suit that's supposed to look like smoldering coal. I really can't wait to see how this comes off in the movie, because I think that's going to be a nice special effect. And what follows then is really a night and day contrast of the group training sessions from what happens in the first book. In this one, Katniss is something of an unspoken celebrity even among the victors. Everyone's trying to either meet her or assess her strengths, etc. She meets Finnick Odair, and I'm pointing him out because I think he's going to be important later. Not only in the fact that he's one of the younger victors that they'll have to go up against, but he fights with a trident. That's kind of his weapon of choice, I guess. And he was very popular with sponsors the first time around. Now, everyone seems to realize at this point that the wedding is canceled between Peeta and Katniss because they're going into the games. But I must have either missed it or it was never explicitly said anywhere because they were suddenly talking about it, and I don't know where that actually came in. So Katniss basically said that only a few of the victors she got to know before going into the games out of the 24. I didn't keep count, but it really felt like they mentioned at least 12 of them. They went into a lot of detail on the other victors this time, and I enjoyed learning about them. A lot of camaraderie between victors. These are folks who were quote-unquote friends. They knew each other from past tours and events, I guess. And I guess one of the ones that obviously stood out the most to me and made me chuckle that it was even in here was Joanna, who at one point basically becomes nude, and then later on we'll see this again and crack me up. The very end of this chapter was... Suzanne Collins loves to put a little shocker at the end of each chapter, I found. And they have a new Avox, which is the servant without a tongue. This time it is Darius from District 12. He used to be one of the peacekeepers. He's the one who stepped in to defend Gale when he was being whipped. Alright, and then chapter 16, I think this might be my favorite chapter of Catching Fire. Katniss and Darius, the Avox, they touch hands briefly when they reach down to pick something up. And they weren't able to say anything to each other. Obviously, Darius has got no tongue now. But she really wanted to talk to him in the last chapter and tell him she was sorry or something, say something to him. She couldn't do that. Their hands touch in this book, and they have a brief moment that really speaks 1,000 words. And I liked that the author found a way to weave that in. They go through and describe most of the other victors. A lot of them are old. They've become weak, fat, drunk, morphling addicts. So some of them are clearly not going to be much of a fight in this game. But the ones that are still around are going to be targeting Katniss and Peeta. So they're clearly going to be... I think they're going to have a harder time this time around. And I wonder if they're going to end up forming a big alliance or a small alliance, or what's going to happen. Hamish basically at this point tells them they need to walk into the training session together alone and not be seen with their prep team. They need to look very self-reliant and in control. Everything they can do to basically intimidate the other victors at this point. We meet two people from District 3, which I really enjoyed meeting, and I was surprised to hear them talk about a couple of their technologies. So, basically an MP3 player that can fit on a piece of glitter, and it just makes me, think of the vast difference between the technologies that the people who live in District 12 have available versus what the folks in District 3 can create. It's pretty high tech. Um, they also point out that a force field has been installed between where the victors are training and where the game masters are observing. Obviously, this is due to what Katniss had done with the bow and arrow last year. And this is also setting up something interesting because they mention, or they teach Katniss about a chink in the force field, which if you're familiar with, armor smithing or something like that, sometimes there will be a chink in the armor where two metal plates come together, and that crack in the middle is called a chink that you can sometimes, in stories you slip a spear between the chink in the armor. So pretty sure this is going to come back. Katniss spends her time making knots, learning how to, make fire quicker, things like that. Obviously, she's always been pretty smart about what survivalist things she learns. Peeta is doing his, crowd mingling thing. There's one part in here that was a little bit hard for me to believe, and this is when Katniss is actually shooting her bow, and the trainer is throwing up fake birds, and she's shooting them out of the sky. And at one point, it says that she shot 5 birds in one round, and I was imagining that he threw 5 all up at once, and boom, 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 she shot them before they hit the ground. That seems a little hard to believe, but maybe he was throwing them one at a time. I don't know. All right. Another thing that surprised me here was that we find out that the mentors, so Hamish, is supposed to offline, be working with the other mentors and coaches to try to form the alliances, because technically, I guess the alliances are against the rules to be pre-set up, but obviously it happens every game, and I thought that the alliance happened between the tributes. I didn't realize that the mentors outside were also a part of that. Last but not least, we have another shocker at the end of a chapter, and this is where the individual tributes, or in this case victors, are giving their solo last, one-on-one demonstration for the judges. And of course, Katniss wants to shock them, so she creates a noose, which is a knot she just learned in training, and she hangs a dummy with, she has written Seneca Crane over the chest in red, bloodish looking letters as a statement to them. And of course, they react negatively to it. My first thought was that she was, basically threatening them, but then I was like, well, wait, that doesn't make sense. That would just anger them against her. I think the message she was trying to give is, Seneca Crane was a game master and, got me to this point, and, look how he was rewarded for it. So basically, game masters, be careful, because she wasn't able to catch the eye of Heavensbee, who was the head game master.